You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is Doug Draper and my counterpart, Pete Mento. This is Global Trade This Week. Pete and I are stoked about this episode because it is all about future trends. This is the week we drop the mic, give you our predictions for 2022. And a year from now, we'll figure out if we're going to eat our words or not. But for the here and the now, we're super excited to bring our predictions for 2022 supply chain, logistics, international trade, policy. It's about to happen. Pete, are you excited?
Yeah. You know, it's funny when you said we're fired up for this edition. I was like, are we though? I mean, I don't think I have a single piece of good news, Doug.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. I am fired up because I'm excited. I have very specific things. I've done a little bit of research, so it looks like I'm semi-important. And, Troy over here, I'm just going to wait and drop that line in the appropriate times. I know you said no taglines, but I got to bring it.
Yeah, I'm really starting to regret that I don't do this drunk, because you've already started with your visual on your tagline. So, all right, Doug. So, do you want me to go first because you did the intro?
I think so. Before we do that, I just want to remind everybody, Cap Logistics are the folks that have made this happen all the way the entire year of 2021. We can't thank them enough. We have some cool stuff and some ideas that we're all tankering with. So 2022 should be pretty amazing as well. But thanks, Cap Logistics. You guys make it happen. With that, Pete, I'll let you dive into it.
Okay. Well, being the guy that buys what can only be described as a crap pile of ocean containers, I'm going to go right after it. I'm going to say that 2023 is going to be a year as bad as 2022 with regards to both the cost of ocean freight as well as the congestion and the bedlam and the chaos. I don't see any relief whatsoever in the coming year inbound into the U.S. I do see that there is going to be some degree, with a caveat here, some degree of American companies finding ways to better deal with the congestion, but the congestion in and of itself is not getting better. I will take back my words for one area, and that is about the West Coast strike. I'm not sure if you've got anything on a possible West Coast strike, but if there is a West Coast strike, all bets are off. But I do believe that we're going to deal with congestion better in 2023, but that will not change the rates that we're going to see via ocean. I think 2022 is going to be absolutely awful, and those 2022 rates are going to remain sort of where they've been hovering for all of 2022. And I'm going to also go on record as saying I don't think we're ever going to see sub 5,000 rates in the spot market ever again, West Coast Asia.
All right. Debbie Downer, I don't know what to say to any of that, Pete, but probably you're right, because there's so many trends and so many things that are happening again and again and again, whether it's COVID related or congestion, that that's almost a layup, my friend, but I think you are spot on.
A layup?
Yeah.
I don't know. You read a lot of the press out there, and everyone's trying to be the first, sunshine and rainbows guy to say that next year is going to be better. And I love marking those pieces of journalism so that I can go back to remind them just how wrong they were somewhere down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead, smart ass, if you think that one was so easy. You go ahead and give me your first one.
All right. So my first one is related to the food delivery services and the concept that they are going to flourish and expand their offerings. And I'm going to call it right now that one of them is going to be acquired by a true play supply chain and delivery logistics company. So the final mile is uber important. And the food delivery services already kind of have this final mile infrastructure in place. And I'm talking about Grubhub and DoorDash, things of that nature. And you've already seen it where a lot of these companies are being tapped on the shoulder to do more than just shuffle food to hungry kids playing video games in their mom's basement. And I think you're going to see a lot of creativity with how businesses engage with those delivery services. And I think ultimately they're going to be acquired. 30 minutes for this, 45 minutes for that. That final mile is going to be so critically important. And that is ripe, to make that final mile, as it's been referred to. So that industry is going to expand. They're going to be doing a hell of a lot more than food. And one of those entities is going to be acquired in the next 360 some odd days.
All right. So when you say acquired, see, I'll take it a step farther. I think that someone like Amazon is going to buy one of those companies.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, you want to talk about a layup there, big guy.
Okay. Touche.
Come on. Now. Honestly.
All right. Fair enough. 1 for 1. All right.
Yeah. But we are getting to the point with the whole home food delivery where it's not a question of, I can remember where there was such a limited, for most Americans that don't live in a major city, it was so limited. It's like, what do you want to order in? Or there's the pizza place, maybe you got the Chinese place that might deliver. It was pretty limited. Now, because of these services, it's, well, what's going to be 40 minutes away, 30 minutes away, 20 minutes away. And I think that that's where a lot of that disruption is going to come from. And it's going to come from being able to offer more money to these drivers. And that technology is going to come from that kind of an acquisition. I think a big company has its sights on offering better technology and better pay, and that's going to bring more people to it. This is a problem that needs butts behind steering wheels in order to get more people there to deliver. And you're right. There's nothing that says that if somebody can do that sort of Postmates model in more and more American cities, it's going to start making people more money.
Yeah.
I don't disagree, Doug.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Number 2, what do you have? Predictions 2022.
No port strike.
No port strike.
No port strike. No West Coast port strike. And this is pretty, and here's why, right? So the reason there won't be a port strike is I read that rhetoric, I've read all the stuff in the press that they've said on the ILW. It's the typical stuff, right? But I just can't believe that in this bad of an environment where every American, even 7-year-olds are worried that Santa's not going to bring what they want for Christmas because the supply chain's broken. I don't think I'd want to be the union that makes things worse. And I think that politically, people can hold that over their head right now. And I'm not sure that in the midterm year, you want to be the president or the political party that supports that. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on these guys to come to some sort of agreement. I don't think that means that the agreement's going to be pro-management. I just think that people are going to be sat in a room and said, work this out, you knuckleheads. And I think we're going to avoid a strike.
Well, I like it. For all of the reasons that you just mentioned. Can't upset the apple cart too much without the politics getting in the middle of it. So I like it. All right, we're going to keep hammering
Doug
along.
agreed with me.
Yes, I love it. So,
right.
So my second one for 2022 predictions is the concept of pop-up logistics is going to be the new supply chain buzzword for 2022, and it's going to expand into all kinds of different logistic industries. So the concept of the pop-up, right, is I guess the easiest one would be a warehouse where I just need X number of space for X number of time in this specific location. And when I'm done with its use, I'm out. And you're not setting up a whole lot of infrastructure. You're coming in and taking care of business and then moving out. So whether that's deployment of product to the market or potentially where there is pop-up return centers where people can bring their returns back. Obviously, heavily dense populated areas are where this comes up. The thing that struck me was that I saw something about Walmart was going to be setting up a pop-up container yard at one of the ports. And so the concept of popping up, I just need this service for this specific amount of time in this geographic area, that's going to become more commonplace. Technology is allowing the setup to come in and be viable and operational in a very short period of time without a whole lot of time, effort, and infrastructure set up. So I think you're going to see that, and this is going to be a little bit crazy, and we've started seeing this a little bit, at least, I can't think of the right word here, Pete, but you mentioned it last week. I'm going to go so far as saying there's going to be a pop-up port where you had spoken about Amazon chucking boxes on the top of some other vessels and just kind of making their own way into a marsh field and throwing boxes off vessels. So I think the concept of a pop-up port, the infrastructure we have now cannot be sustainable for reasons that we've talked about multiple times. There is no relief in sight, as you had just called out on your first prediction. People are going to get creative. They're going to pop stuff up where they need it, when they need it. So keep an eye out for that term. Pop-up logistics or some sort of acronym related to that is going to be big in 2022.
So those secondary ports that we talked about, those non-obvious container ports, I think are going to be massive. They're going to be necessary in order to help us. I think that, when I talked about earlier, less congestion, a lot of that's going to be driven by creative solutions. That's exactly what you're talking about. I think one of the biggest threats to the pop-up logistics warehousing space is the contract issues that come with this. Everybody's so concerned right now about liability in these contracts. And in the past, we were able to be so litigious in these contracts and to be so overly concerned about it. It's coming to bear right now where the owners of these spaces are able to say, you want the space or not? Because if you want the space, you need to sign with these terms, because I've got 10 people lined up behind you who will probably sign for it. So I think one of the reasons why I'm going to agree with you on this one, Doug, is we're at the point now where warehouse space has become so precious that if you snooze, you're going to lose on it. So I think that's one of the reasons where these pop-up spaces are probably more realistic than ever before. So I'm going to go with you on that one.
Yeah, cool.
All right, my next one, major port closures to go along with the new ports in the U.S. I think that the Chinese COVID response issues that we see in places like that happen in Ningbo and Guangdong and the such, you're going to see these emergency port closures happening more and more because of COVID response, the zero tolerance COVID response issues. I think we're going to see a couple of major port closures and major city closures in China because of the ineffectiveness of their vaccines. So I expect that there are going to be major supply chain disruptions that will happen in 2022 because of significant port closures. I think you're going to see them as early as the first quarter prior to Chinese New Year of 2022.
I think there's going to be a lot of shenanigans going on over there on the origin ports. My question is how much of it is true, valid COVID concerns and how much of it is posturing and using that as an excuse in order to maintain chaos and keep prices high?
I think, one of my other predictions, Doug, is that things between the U.S. and China will get worse next year as they put pressure on the Biden administration in the midterm election to sit down and try to negotiate something. We're both going to get worse with each other, right? So you're going to try to drive up the chaos before you get to the table.
Yeah.
So you're certainly going to see some non-tariff barrier silliness. I like shenanigans. That's a good word. But the last thing that China wants to do is to stop the people that have already produced something from making money from it. The ports are just too important because those ports are the same ones that export to Europe. So I don't think they do it to the ports. They're going to do it everywhere else as they make these regulatory changes to a different regulatory regime and try to get their goods to start selling inward. They're willing to take that short-term loss in order to get people to do it. But I think that it's going to be ugly, really, really ugly next year between ourselves and China as Xi Jinping puts more and more pressure on the United States to put us to the table to get us to negotiate something more in favor of the Chinese Communist Party.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So that was a 2-for-1 right there, Pete. I set you up to do that softball out there. I like it.
Thanks, man.
So my third prediction for 2022 in the supply chain world is that the EV, the electric vehicle industry, is going to focus almost exclusively and take traction, no pun intended, in the final mile electrification. Kind of goes back to my comments there, is that there's a tremendous amount of investment dollars. There's a lot of opportunity for disruption, and it's going to be a very crowded space. What makes the headlines is a company like Nikola or others that have semis that are big and have a great big picture and talk about this long journey and everything else. But the reality is that the here and the now, the electrification is such a hot topic because of carbon neutral footprint and the global global warming, is that the low hanging fruit is the local delivery, whether it's scooters, whether it's bikes, autonomous little courier vans, things of that nature. But the EV industry is going to go bonkers, but it's going to be primarily focused on that final mile. I want to be wary of companies that may be in it for the wrong reasons to make a quick buck. And I think you're going to hear the term, Pete, I'm going to call this right now, that you don't want to get Nicola'd or WeWorked if you start making investments into final mile EV companies. What I mean is there's going to be a lot of people in the space. There's going to be a lot of creativity, and not everybody's going to throw money at it because they want to find the next great thing. I want to be leading the pack with the electric vehicle EV solution that's going to solve the world. So people are going to throw money, and there's going to be some shenanigans going on, Pete, where there's going to be illicit plans and things of that nature where, hey, I can come in and make a quick buck, create a big wave, and then walk away with a ton of money. That's the WeWork model, and potentially walk away with a lot of money, but have it come back and bite you in the butt, which would be the Nikola model. So anyway, the electrification of the final mile, my man, it's going to be hot and heavy.
Yeah.
Bring it.
I do not disagree with you that the electrification of the final mile is going to be a big deal. I think it's going to happen more outside the U.S. than in the U.S. I think that you're going to see a lot of union and labor pressures begin to hit that market. I think you're going to see a lot of, why aren't people taking more of these jobs at Postmates and Grubhub and Uber Eats? Because far too much is left in the hands of the person who is paying for the delivery of it in order to make it worthwhile for you financially in this gig economy. And I think you're going to find that people looking for a living wage are going to try to find some way to unionize it, much like what we're seeing with the Starbucks of the world, people pushing with Amazon and such. And I think that the adoption and application of those technologies will be easier to do outside of the U.S. than in the U.S. I think you're also going to see a lot more electrification of cargo handling, electrification of those types of vehicles on airports, ports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where you can make a really quick punch to your carbon footprint than you can in the U.S. So yes and no. I mean, I'm with you on part of it, but I think the U.S. is going to be a little slower to adopt it, like we always are, than other parts of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, here's my next one, buddy.
Yeah.
Russia will invade the Ukraine, and they will do it early on. They will do it because they know there is nothing the United States or anyone else will do about it, and it will have a fascinating and almost immediate impact on the cost of natural gas around the world, and it will probably spark a desire and an attitude in the U.S. to resume the exploration of the idea of fracking, and to possibly look into what we can do to re-export as much possible natural gas as we can. It will spook the Europeans. It will continue to create all kinds of chaos in the European economy and the way that the Europeans manage their internal politics. And it will reignite the passions of NATO to consider what they should do with the other European and Eastern European countries.
How soon?
And it will cause financial bedlam. First quarter of 2020.
Okay, nice. Wow, you just dropped the ball. Not dropped the ball. You dropped the mic on that one, man. That's like 90 days away.
Yeah, I think. Well, the Russians, they prefer to, take action like that in cold weather, and it's unlikely that anyone's going to do anything about it. We already know no one but them is prepared for it. Our president's talked tough, but he hasn't really prepared for what's going to happen. So we'll see.
Interesting. All right, that's the boldest prediction thus far. I like
That's
it.
me, buddy.
Yes. All right. So here's my next prediction for supply chain logistics 2022 is the subscription-based service model, aka reoccurring revenue, will start to gain interest and find its way into supply chain logistics. So what I mean by that is you have the Amazon, the Netflix, the Dollar Shave Club, Green Chef. Give me your credit card. Gym memberships. Give me a credit card, we'll start hitting you every single month, regardless of usage, and that reoccurring revenue is an enabler to help grow, develop, and move companies forward. The subscription-based model services, I think, is going to pop up primarily in warehousing. And that's my background with ACME Distribution here in Denver. We're not currently doing this model, but there's much interest, and a lot of companies are like, hey, I don't need all of these charges, just give me a number. And I want that to accommodate, encompass, all the services you provide, the in, the out, the warehouse, the storage, the handling, the transportation. It'll work if it's a small, high volume item. I think I'm already seeing that in some companies out there doing that, but it's going to gain speed, and I think it's going to expand into other areas of the supply chain. So the subscription-based model service, which is reoccurring revenue, not on a transactional basis, is going to gain some steam in 2022, and it's going to start and gain a lot of momentum in the warehousing space.
All right. Yeah, I can't disagree with the idea of alternative ways of billing. We're at a point now where it's just gotten so cuckoo bananas that I think that the logistics industry can probably begin to call its own shot. So yeah, probably not unlikely. Right. Next bold prediction: the Republicans will take both the House and the Senate handily in the midterm elections, and you're going to see a lot of pressure in legislation demanding a return to American consumption and American production being legislated. So that's going to be a big part of both how people run. We need to return the supply chain back to America. We need to return production back to America, and a call for legislation that supports this. It will be clumsy and awkward and ineffective, but you're going to see a lot of people pushing that narrative in Congress. So you're going to see not only a sweeping retaking of the House and the Senate being much stronger Republican, but you're going to also see an awkward and clumsy attempt by that party to bring production to the United States and reshoring production of goods to the United States in order to recreate a better supply chain of American production here.
Wait, what? Did you say clumsy and awkward in related to our political system? Did I understand that correctly?
I did indeed, my friend, and you just couldn't wait to point to your silly little catchphrase, could you? Yeah, under the desk right now, I'm pointing a particular finger at you, but I'm not going to raise it above the desk because this is a family show.
Yeah. So, well, you know what? I'm going to kind of end. So I had 4, and then this fifth one is, wouldn't say it's touchy-feely, Pete, but out here in Colorado, we give a lot of group hugs. A lot of trees. There's so much tree hugging going on here. It's unbelievable. I'm watching it right now out of my window, and it wouldn't be on par unless I brought that up. So, in hindsight, I think that I literally just thought about this right now. It seems like 3 of my predictions are all about final mile. So I'm going to take a step back before I go into my last prediction. Is that the final mile, the concept of everything that's around final delivery to the consumer, quicker, faster, more choices, simplified pricing, all of that is going to really gain some steam in 2022. I just realized that those are 3 common themes. So anyway, here's my final one. This is the touchy-feely one, is that I think if you are looking for good people to hire for your company, whether it's supply chain, logistics, or any other industry out there, I'm going to take a step outside of our sphere of knowledge base here, is that your organization needs to have some sort of purpose behind it, and that purpose has to be more than just making money. As I think that the worker, post pandemic, and even if we're still in the pandemic to some degree, is that there's a lot more to life than just cashing a paycheck and sitting around. People want more. So if your company has a purpose, and it has a direction beyond just making money, that's how you're going to differentiate yourself from others that are trying to attract the best talent. So I would encourage companies to find their purpose and share that with their employees. It's going to be a bigger, better, more successful organization as you move forward. And people are going to migrate and desire that type of environment that they work within, whether it is remote or in person. If your company, develop a purpose, market that purpose, and you will find the right type of employees and the right leaders for your organization moving forward. Done.
I love it, Doug. I love it, Doug, and I hope that's the case. I'm very fortunate to work for a enormous corporation that values the individual and their ideas a great deal. So I can tell you that they certainly do that. And I should also point out, as always, that my opinions are my own. So it's always a good thing to remember to say when I come on here. And with that, Doug, with that flourish of positivity, what a great way to end our year. I will also give a flourish of positivity by thanking the good people of CAP Logistics who support us all year long with technical support, financial support for the show, letting us use the ninth grader that they've had as a perpetual intern, Keenan, who is in fact not a ninth grader. I think he's like, at least a senior by now. But Keenan manages the booth, keeps all the buttons and the bobbles working in the right direction, and keeps the show on the air. We can't do it without him. We'd like to try, but we can't do it without him. I think there's some sort of court-appointed requirement. I don't know exactly how that works. It might be part of my parole. I'm not quite sure. But we do sincerely appreciate him, all kidding aside. He does an amazing job for us. We also can't thank all of you enough for being part of this week in, week out, for letting everybody know that we're here, for watching us, for listening to us, for hitting us up with ideas. And Doug, I can't thank you enough, buddy. You put up with me every week, which I know has got to be just fill you with anxiety every time you see that this thing is happening. But I love working with you, buddy, and I can't wait for another year of this.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride, and I'm glad you're part of it.
Thanks, buddy. So happy holidays to you and yours. And Doug and I, on behalf of the whole team, we can't say this enough. Have a wonderful and a safe holiday season. Keep your seatbelts on, and we can't thank you enough. So happy holidays, happy new year, and we'll see you right back here next year with more episodes of Global Trade This Week.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, guys. Take care.